So, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the third edition of Academia at Workplace Pride. My name is Luigi Etienne, and I will be your moderator for today, for this session where will be addressing challenges faced by international LGBTIQ plus students. Before we get started, I would like to invite you all watching from home to join the conversation by posting your questions in the chat. And later on today, we will have a Q&A session where our guests will be able to answer those questions. Today, we're coming to you live from the Raadzaal, which is in the City Council here in Enschede, one of the most beautiful and oldest halls in the Netherlands. And this is all thanks to the councillor, Mr. Arjan. And so now, joining me today, we have Anka Mulder, who is joining online. She's the president of Saxion. Welcome, Anka.
Hello, welcome to this Workplace Pride seminar organized by Saxion, University of Applied Sciences, and the University of Twente. We are very happy to host this seminar together. Saxion is proud to be the first University of Applied Sciences to have become member of Workplace Pride. And of course, we are happy that the University of Twente also decided to join Workplace Pride. And there were more developments last year. On the 6th of October, Saxion, University of Twente, and the ROC van Twente, so all three large educational institutions in Twente, we signed an agreement together, and that agreement states that together in Twente, we will create an inclusive, safe, healthy, and inspiring environment for LGBTIQ plus students, teachers, and other staff. And where possible, we will work together nationally and internationally as well. Well, an example of that national cooperation, so within the Netherlands, is the Academia at Workplace Pride, in which we work together with Leiden University, the Leiden Medical Center, TU Delft, the Dutch Research Foundation NWO, and academic publisher Elsevier. At Saxion University of Applied Sciences, we have several projects that are carried out that deal with a good and safe study environment for LGBTIQ students and the importance of role models among teachers. An example of this type of research you will see in a minute when one of our students, Devon Paul, will tell you about their research on gender-neutral gaming. Perhaps one last point, and that is about reputation. I know that the Netherlands have a reputation for being a country in which you can be yourself, whatever your roots, religion, your gender, or your sexual orientation. But a reputation is something you have to work on constantly. You have to substantiate it with proof. You have to show what it means in reality. And that is exactly what we do here in the east of the country, in the east of the Netherlands. Saxion is a member of Workplace Pride, and we have an active LGBTIQ plus student association. We also have a regional LGBTIQ agreement, which I just mentioned, signed by Saxion University of Applied Sciences, the University of Twente, and the ROC of Twente. So here in Twente, we will try our utmost to make you feel at home, to show you that here you can be yourself, develop your talents, learn together and have fun together, whichever country you are from. Here in Twente, we want to be an example, the most inclusive region of the Netherlands here in Twente, and I wish you a wonderful webinar.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Elena?
Yeah, I'm a fourth-year student. I did an international study. Right now, I am only doing my internships, and hopefully, if the corona measures are going to be very strict again, I will graduate this summer. And yeah, I'm really, really happy to be here and answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Joining us from the Netherlands, we have Tessa Losse.
Yes.
Hello, Tessa.
Hi. Well, I am a Dutch student here. I'm not international like the others, but I'm from the board of Exalter. That's the student LGBTQ plus association, and we're here to represent every student in our community of that has troubles with these issues that we're discussing today.
Nice. Very, very welcome. Joining us from Bulgaria, we have Krasimir Dimitrov. Welcome.
Business student in Saxion University. I'm currently doing my Smart Solutions semester, and it's been good so far. And I can't wait to go to my minor abroad next year, hopefully in Canada. Depends how are the COVID situations again. But yeah, really happy to be here.
Thank you very much. And joining us online, we have Devon Paul from Germany, right?
Yes, that's correct. Hi, everyone. My name is Devon. My pronouns are they, them, and I am a non-binary student. I am a student at Saxion University, and currently I'm writing my thesis on gender diverse inclusion in games and focused on character customization and how we can improve the experience for trans and gender diverse players in that field.
My name is Terem. I am the new Diversity and Inclusion Officer with the University of Twente. I just started in October of 2020, and it is with great pride that I get to say today that we have become an official member of academia at WorkplacePride as of the beginning of this year. And what that means is that I hope it allows us to be accountable in creating a university that is welcoming for all LGBTQI plus members in society, and that it is an environment where people can study and work safely. And I'm so happy to be here as well. I moved back to the Netherlands last year, coming from quite a conservative country, and just being in a space where love is celebrated in all its different forms and is allowed to be celebrated is super important. And I think being here today and being able to talk about that is a great space to be in. And in doing so, we were talking about what is the history of the Netherlands. As you heard Anka just mentioning, we're really working together to become an inclusive environment in the region of Enschede and Twente in the east of the Netherlands. But also, what then does it mean to be an open society? And if we look at the history, it was already in 1811 when the Dutch were invaded by the French that the Napoleon Act was introduced, which meant that same-sex activity was legalized, actually. But then it took more than a century till after the Second World War that in 1971, the government finally said, you know what, we are actually saying that same-sex activity is no longer seen as a mental illness. And this also then led to the military in the Netherlands decriminalizing and banning discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation. And it only was in 2014, that's just a few years ago, that the military in the Netherlands then said, actually, if you're a transgender, we're also no longer discriminating against that. So the history is quite fresh. We also just last weekend celebrated 20 years since Netherlands became the first country in the world where we have allowed same-sex marriage. And I think that is quite significant, and again shows that it's all quite recent, right, this history, and that even though we're saying that we're quite a liberal country and we're trying, there's still a lot of work to be done. And another thing in 1994, which I found quite interesting, was that we finally officially brought in the Equal Treatment Act, which banned discrimination on account of sexual orientation in employment, housing, public accommodation, and other areas. And then what I also really thought was very interesting is that in the Netherlands, we have the COC, which is the oldest LGBTQI plus organization in the world that fights for equal rights for all. And at the end of the day, essentially, this is all fighting for human rights for everyone, right? No matter where you're from, no matter what your sexual orientation is. And lastly, what I think is very important is that the Dutch king and the Dutch government are advocating worldwide for equal rights and to really get LGBTQI plus work groups going and letting them know that there is support for what they're trying to do. And I think that is very important. And I am glad that we're in that space. And because of that, I'm also very happy that we're able today to have this session to see, what are the experiences that these students have? What do you expect when you want to come and study in the Netherlands as an international student from the LGBTQI plus community? And what is the reality on the ground? Because honestly, wherever you go in the world, people from the LGBTQI plus community are fully still struggling. So I'm really glad that we got to do this. And Luigi, it's back to you.
Thank you very much, Tere. I think this was a great introduction, a great way to start our webinar today. So without further ado, I would like to get the conversation started. And for this, I will like to ask the first question to Krasimir. What were your expectations when you came to study here in the Netherlands as an LGBTIQ plus student?
Yeah. Well, my first expectation definitely was that people are happier here. You can see random people on the streets smiling at you, saying hi, even if you have never seen those people before. And coming from an Eastern European country, this is something that is not usual for us. If you go on the streets, you don't see people smiling for no reason, for example. And here you see happy people, and if you see two people from the same sex on the streets holding hands of their child, you feel happy, you feel that they're doing something good in life. And if you see that back home in my country, it won't be supported by everyone. Probably, yes, by the new generation, the people who are just growing and starting to be open-minded, but by people who are a little bit older, a little bit more conservative, they won't get any positive reactions, to be honest. And this is something that I was really happy to move to the Netherlands, because I like seeing happy couples on the streets with their kids. Doesn't matter the gender, the sexuality, everything just makes me smile, because people here are very open-minded. That was one of my biggest expectations.
I can imagine from what you're saying that coming from a more conservative society, yes, it made you happy, but it might also be kind of a struggle trying to get there, right?
Yeah. Well, challenging, of course, yes. Studying something that is related to business, to finance and accounting, people always expect people to just be, how can I say that, straight, just gonna straight like that. And when you are, let's say, with your team team members working on a project, or with your teacher, and when you just start saying, oh, by the way, my boyfriend, this and this, and all of them get the same reaction, even though it's really open-minded country, they still don't accept as quick as I wished that they do. So for example, some of them are like, oh, you have a boyfriend, so, and then just started asking personal questions, which I don't really find comfortable asking right away when they find out something about me that personal. And I just hope people are a little bit more how can I say this, more helpful, because if something like this happens, then I'm probably the only one at the table that feels the same way. But then someone who feels a little bit puts themselves in my shoes, then they will see what happened in my life before that. Some LGBT, I would say most of us have traumas back from when we were kids, and probably from our parents as well, and we don't really feel comfortable about talking this to some people that we don't really know.
And Devon, I can imagine that, of course, you come from a neighboring country, so it's not that the society is not that different, but still, in your case, as a non-binary person, how has your experience been in this situation?
Yeah. For me, it's actually a really interesting experience because in Germany and in the German language as well, everything is gendered. We even have genders for things like tables, or we gender everything. And coming to the Netherlands and also coming out as non-binary while living in the Netherlands was a really interesting experience that I did not expect to go so well. I had more problems in Germany than I had in the Netherlands because when I came out, I talked to my study coach, and she was really nice and welcoming. And when I changed my name, she helped me to change it across the school system right away. And it was just accepted by everyone, which was really nice. I was actually surprised because I did like I would expect people to not understand and to ask more questions. But inside the school system, I had a really, really good experience. I changed my name on my resumes and on my website, and I showed it to my teachers for feedback. And they just, I remember an answer that was like, "Oh, you changed your name? Good for you." It was just accepted. And this was a bit after I moved away again. But now they also introduced gender neutral toilets and stuff to the school. And that's something that I really, really, really think is so great, and it changes a lot, and it helps so much to feel non-binary people feel more comfortable in that environment and to be included, because there is not a lot of space for us, for people that don't necessarily fit on the binary. Um, and a lot of times it's hard, especially if you use neutral pronouns like I do. I made the experience that a lot of people, they will assign you the pronouns that they think you should have when they start talking to you. And it's easier in the Netherlands than in Germany, I have to say, definitely.
And following up on that specific comment, you mentioned how easy it was here in the Netherlands, but of course you live in Germany, and it's really close by. So how was the experience in Germany after you made all these changes?
So when I moved back to Germany and when I started my internship, which was also in Germany, I felt that I have to decide for one binary side, because people are not used to the concept of non-binary. It is changing, but when I started my internship, I went back to choosing a side of the binary, and I chose to tell them that I am binary trans instead of non-binary trans, and to tell them that they should just call me he, him pronouns, because it was easier for them. And even that was not easy to get accepted. So yeah, it was hard.
I can imagine going through having to explain that again and again can be difficult.
Yeah.
And for here for our guests from the Netherlands and from Norway. In your case, Tessa, you are from the Netherlands. How has your experience been as an LGBTIQ plus person?
I mostly have a different experience from the most people, because I actually never have encountered any issues with me being bisexual. I have encountered some things in the past with my mother being a lesbian, which only actually made me see that like those people aren't really worth my time, and therefore I'm very surrounded in an environment where people don't mind me whatever I am, as long as I'm happy and they like me, so that's fine. I actually don't have any issues, but I can see like I have from my father's side the Indonesian background, and I know that in that side of the family there are more struggles about it. But I don't really feel connected to them, so I don't encounter those issues. But I can see there's a lot of difference.
And I can imagine that perhaps not in your personal life, but as part of Exaltio, you
Yeah.
actually see a lot of these struggles, right?
Yes, within the association we see a lot of people struggling with like feeling that they are accepted. That most of the people come to the association because they feel like they aren't accepted by everyone, and have a hard time coming out to people, and also struggling with like, should I tell my coworkers or should I not, and should I keep it a secret, or should I pretend not to be. And it's very hard to see people struggling like that for something like it doesn't make them less of a person. And it's very sad to see how much it affects people.
Yeah, and I can imagine it's not only the should I, but why should I? I mean, why
Yeah.
do I have to tell you a little some more about my personal life? It doesn't matter. I'm here to work, right?
Yeah.
And Helena, you come a little bit more from the north. How has what were your expectations when you came to study here in the Netherlands?
Yeah, that's already 4.5 years ago. And I think I expected it to be very open and that it would be easier to connect with people, maybe through student organizations or just because it's very populated and there's many types of communities here. And I also come from a pretty small village. So being a bisexual and only having dated people of the opposite gender, I haven't been very like, I wasn't very open and very outspoken about it, but also not hiding it. I would refer to people I dated as people, not really refer to the gender, but that's very subtle. But I started to feel like it would be easier to be more open and talk about it here just because I saw more people in the community. And I haven't really experienced a lot of discrimination either. It's not very visible on me, I don't think. But when I see things that affect the community as a collective, like new laws being made, or even if someone was harassed for the way they express themselves, then I also feel it on the inside. And the victories that happen, I also feel and I'm happy about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And if you were to compare your experience here and your experience back home, what differences do you find?
I think if I compare it to village, I think it's more back home. It would maybe be a bit more like whispering. Oh, did you hear that? I think this person is gay, and I am not sure this person expressed themselves this way. So, and maybe a bit more in the older generations. And here, I think it's slightly less, but I think it's also very similar. So the difference is not huge, but there are some subtle differences, I think. Yeah.
I noticed that when you mentioned this about people talking in the village, Krasimir was noting. Do you want to share something with us?
Yeah, maybe it depends on the size of a village or a city. I come from the capital of Bulgaria, Sofia, and it's a huge city. And even though it's easier to spread, let's say, those news or gossips in a village, is even easier to spread them in bigger cities. Because if I say something to one person, that person is going to tell them to 10 people, 10 other people, and then the news are going, they're spreading way quicker than the one in the village, for example. But it's something that you don't want other people to know, if I can say it like that. In something personal, it's your thing to come out. It's not your job. It's none of your business. It's my story. I need to tell one person, for example, and that would be one of my closest friends. And I come out to that person because there's trust, and it's really hard in this society, I would say, to build trust with people that you don't know, especially in the Netherlands. You come here, you don't really get close to people that quick, and you don't feel the need to come out to them because you are not ready, for example. And then you just need to accept yourself first to feel comfortable with you, and then build trust, and then come out to someone else. And it's really hard, especially with internationals, because here we study with people from all over the world, with different religions, with different cultures, with different everything. And you don't know how they will accept it. You don't know how is it accepted in their country. And it's something that you just need to work on a lot in order to, you know, to be sufficient, let's put it that way.
Yeah, I can imagine, and based on what you just said, I agree with something very specific that you mentioned. Everyone should be allowed to come out at their own pace. They should be able to decide when, where, and to whom they come out, right?
Mhm.
So I think we can go to the next question. I would pose the question, and any one of you can actually reply to this one. And when you moved here to the Netherlands, was there attention to social safety, or what arrangements are there in place for you as an international LGBTIQ plus international student?
I would say if there was, it was not promoted as much as we people of the community would like to be, because people, let's say, yes, you see stands, LGBTIQ stands, let's say on the introduction week of university. You're a freshman, you don't know anyone, and it's coming from a country which is not accepted to be, openly gay, let's say. And you will not go to that stand right away because you don't want your classmates to see you go to that stand. So you're like, okay, I will study with those people for 4 years, you know what I mean? And then you'll be like, they will know that for 4 years for strangers, and then it's not okay. So even if you want to be part of the community in the university, to get help, to be a little bit more safe, it just don't want them to know yet, and something maybe depends in each culture. If I go to dance stand and let's say I know a few people from my country, and then they will start talking about, hey, did you see that guy? He went to that stand, so you'll be like a little bit of outsider because of people from your country saw you there, and then they will spread the news throughout the whole community from your country. And it's it's, I would say, it's really shocking how quick those news can go. But let's say if I did something really good, I passed an exam with a 10, or I did something good with science, for example, those news will not spread as quick as this rumor, let's say. It's just insane how good rumors or news don't spread as quick as bad.
True. And for you, Elena?
Yeah, at the time when I came here, I wasn't very open. I was also just generally a bit timid, but so I didn't really approach those things at the time. And I just, I think with some more time, after 2 years or so, then I started thinking about it and then looking into things more. But I think that is the if I go to study in Norway, I think it's very similar that there will be a stand with LGBTQ people, and there will be certain communities you can go to. But here, if I went to that stand, people back home wouldn't know. If I went there in Norway, they would know. So then that difference actually maybe made it easier for me to start find out a bit about my identity.
Good. And Devon, for you, how was the experience with social safety and arrangements here in the Netherlands?
It was very similar to what was already said. I I felt happy when I just saw these pride flags when I came into the school first. Um, it was kind of like you don't see that here very much, even though it is open. And I think if I were to start somewhere here now at a school, you would probably see it as well. But when I came to the Netherlands, I didn't see this being promoted openly anywhere as much. So yeah, I was really, really. I didn't go to these stands because I still wasn't sure about many things, but it gave me a sense of it's okay to be all these things and to be queer when I'm here. So it was nice to see it visualized.
And at some point, did the fact that you were in this new environment with this level of acceptance and these associations, did it also help you in making your own decisions?
Yes, I'd say so. Because I got to connect to a lot of LGBT students and a lot of students from around the world, and to share my experience with them. And from that, I learned so much that I was able to use that for myself and to build my personality further. So, yeah.
Very good. And were there any, and I'm going to address this one first to you, Devon, were there any problems finding internships, and were there enough support to make good use of it?
I think it was quite hard to find an internship for myself. I feel like in the gaming area, a lot of things are focused on serious gaming in the Netherlands. And I think it's a really important subject, but it wasn't what I was looking out to do. So I had to search a little further, and in the end, it was easier to go to a German company for me. But yeah, it was a bit tricky to find a fitting internship for me, definitely.
And after finding that internship, what was your overall experience with it?
Like I said before, when I was back at that internship in Germany, I found myself to kind of play another role. I didn't want to go back into the closet necessarily, but I felt like I have to put on a different role because non-binary is a really foreign concept still. So yeah, I played the role of the binary trans person, which was more comfortable to me than outing myself as a female. But it was still very uncomfortable because I am not those things. And when I told my coworker, I had to do that involuntarily because I had to put my official names on the document, which are not yet changed. And I told them to call me Devon. And he went up to me and asked me why I want to be called Devon and what's wrong with my dead name. And so I had to explain that I don't use that name anymore. And afterwards, I had to answer a lot of uncomfortable questions that were very private and didn't feel good.
And I can imagine that a lot of questions also came with your research, because I heard that you are your research is on non-binary characters in video games, right?
To an extent, it is about gender inclusive content in video games, and it's focused on character customization for trans and gender diverse people. So it includes binary trans people as well, but it is focused on getting away from that standard, very, very masculine and very, very feminine presenting character design. Yeah.
So I can imagine that that also raised a lot of questions in that environment, right?
Yeah.
And over here as well, the same question goes for you guys. Did you find a lot of problems or struggles trying to get an internship?
I wasn't I didn't have problems finding internship because of my identity, but a little bit due to being international and wanting it to here in the Netherlands, and due to the corona measures. So in the end, it took half a year. So my study was extended to a half a year. And otherwise, I think it's a bit hard for me to know whether I should be open or how open I have to be, because I seem very straight. Like there's at the moment there's nothing about my personal life that says anything but that. But if someone asks me, do you have a girlfriend or boyfriend, like if they include both or more, that really means a lot to me. But that's very subtle, and it's very like it's a bit hard to navigate for me to know what do I say and what do I not say, because if I am open, it starts to get very personal right away. So I imagine someone who expresses themselves differently might experience more problems or more direct issues more than the subtle ones that I have.
Yeah.
So
And Tessa, you're Dutch, of course, but as a Dutch person, Dutch LGBTIQ plus person, how has been your experience?
Well, I still need to do my internship, but mostly it's generally quite hard to find an internship just as a student, and I, in my experiences work related, generally didn't have any issues, but I know that some places are more open about it than others, and it just makes it different for me if I feel like, hey, I want to share this, or that I'm like, or I don't because I work and people are not going to ask me questions about it, so then I don't say anything. um, I don't think me being bisexual changes my chances of getting an internship, but I wouldn't feel comfortable working for a company where I know that they have these heteronormalized views, where I know that I can't say it if I don't want to be judged about it.
Yeah, true. And for you, Krasimir?
Kind of the same what she said, Helena, in the beginning. It was not hard to find internship based on um, how I see myself, but mostly because of the situation right now. And studying international business, I already knew that my internship will be abroad. And I said to myself, I need to do my internship in a country where they're open-minded. They don't discriminate, so I don't feel bad at my workplace or when I'm going out. So I decided to go to Belgium, to Brussels. So it's capital. It's a big city, and I expected to work with international people because the company was international, and most of the colleagues were young. And you know, when you see someone young from the new generation, you expect them to be a little bit more open-minded, to be more ambitious towards what's happening with the social trends right now. And I had a colleague from Denmark. We followed each other on social media, and then he saw some pictures with, let's say, with my old girlfriend on Instagram. And then a few days later, we were talking, and I just mentioned, "Oh, this is my boyfriend," and he was like, "Oh, boyfriend? So are you gay?" And I was like, "No, I'm not." He was like, "Are you straight?" "No, I'm not straight." And I just said that I just hate labels. I really don't like labeling people, and you know, preferring myself as a bisexual male. I don't feel how can I say that, the need to just pick a side. A lot of people say you have to pick a side. You're either this or that. I know I prefer both genders, and this is how I identify.
Yeah, so it is safe to say that it wasn't a struggle finding the internship, but you faced a different reality while you were there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what role do you think companies play in creating safe internship spaces for students?
Well, especially every company has a company culture, code of conduct, and in the code of conduct, you rarely see policies against homophobia. And of course, in some multinational companies, you'll see that in the code of conduct, but not all the companies, especially in Europe. You don't see that in small enterprises, for example, where most of us young students do our internship, because we won't do our internship in some huge companies because those positions are already taken, or you're not, let's say, smart enough to get into that position. And then those small enterprises that you go to do your internship, they don't really understand your lifestyle. For example, you go there, they expect you to be dressed as everyone, which they have dress code, and this is something that you cannot express yourself in that way. If you want to go to your workplace, you're being pressured to wear something that you don't feel comfortable, for example, and you can't express yourself, which is something our community is struggling a lot in the past few years.
I think we have time for maybe one or two questions from the chat.
Going by the upvotes in the questions and answer section, thank you to everybody that put questions in. First question is from Seth, and they say, as a non-binary student, they've noticed that there is often very little in terms of accessibility for students like Seth, and seemingly very little education for teachers on an institutional level. So Seth was wondering if the speakers have any thoughts on how to address this with the universities, for example.
I brought it up with my study coach, and it helped kind of to talk in a private room about this first. And through that, I think what happened is that other people were notified that non-binary is in fact a thing. And from what I gathered, I wasn't present at the school anymore then, but from what I gathered is that student organizations got together and they asked for options like a toilet for non-binary people that is not gendered. And so I think what can help is really to find one person at the school that is a teacher or a study coach or even another student, and to get together and talk about that and try to bring that up in a smaller and more comfortable space first before bringing it to the higher ups. So at least that's what helped me.
We have one more question, highly upvoted, from Arno, and Arno says, as a lecturer and student supervisor, they are curious what the teaching staff of universities should or would be able to provide to make LGBTIQ plus students feel more comfortable.
I would say, can you, Tessa, maybe from your experience with Exaltio, say something about this?
I think mostly what people are missing is the general view that when they enter the school or university, that they aren't sure about how like the university and the schools are invested in making sure that you are just as valid as any other student. And for lots of people, it takes a lot of time to run into things, to see that there are a lot of options for them, because it's generally just not that known about. And then you encounter the situation where you feel like even if you see it, if you only see it once and you don't feel comfortable at that time to go up to it, it's very hard to find it again. And I think what would work better is to make sure that during your whole studies, like, there's a lot of opportunity where you can see that there are lots of people actively working on your acceptance, and whenever you feel comfortable, you can reach out.
There definitely has to be do's and don'ts for teachers, how to address students in the beginning, because you're a freshman, you have 20 other 5 students in classroom, and let's say the teacher is going to start the class with guys and girls or ladies and gentlemen, and the people who don't identify as neither of them, they don't feel as welcome, let's say, as the rest. And that needs to be paid more attention, definitely. And um, what teachers can do is just to educate themselves a little bit more, to get some trainings from the deans of each academy, for example, to hire someone who is in this topic for a longer time, someone who feels that issue way more, way deeper than a normal traineeship, for example. And they just need to be taught how to address those issues in this environment, because not everyone can think the same way you do. So for example, a straight person would not understand the issues that we've been going through, and even the bullying that we had in our high schools, because every one of us comes from a different country, and you don't know how the violence against the community is in every high school in each country. And definitely most of us have traumas from high school, and when you're here, of course, you come to the Netherlands, you don't expect this, but of course, there's something called indirect homophobia. For example, you apply for the same jobs to people, and I'm not going to get the job because I'm not as dressed as the dress code, for example, or I don't express myself as the rest. And this should be really addressed in each academy, in each university. You need to take care of those students because they're really, really valuable, and they bring a huge contribution to what is going on in the university, because every university is promoting that they want diversity. You want diversity, we are part of your diversity, so take care of us, promote it way more.
I would like to invite Daniel Lenting, a student from Saxion and ambassador from Think with Pride, to introduce himself.
Yes, thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank you all here for sharing your wonderful stories, because for me as a Dutch gay student, I've heard so much stories which I wasn't aware of. And I think this is really, really wonderful and helpful for us all to also improve the things we want to do. Because my name is Daniel Lenting. I'm a student, second year creative business in video and audio design. And I am a member of the Think with Pride community we have at Saxion. And Think with Pride is so the network for students and staff for the LGBTQ+. And we've had some major things we've accomplished so far. And one example is already given. In each Saxion building block, there is now a gender-neutral toilet block. And this is just something we are really proud of that we have accomplished. And in November 2019, Saxion and Think with Pride had the great opportunity to host the Tech at WorkplacePride event. And it showcases the companies and groups from each company. They showcased the Pride initiatives and all the diversity goals to guarantee the safe environment. And also, I would like to give a little promotion still to Excelsior and the students from University of Twente. And Saxion are always welcome in their safe environments. And just to quote something from their website, the major difference with our association is that we do not solely focus on students, but all on adolescents within the LGBTQ+ community in the region of Twente. And especially right now, not only LGBTQ+ students, but many more, but mostly also the LGBTQ+ students we want to focus on haven't got physical class at campus in these extraordinary times. So Think with Pride and Excelsior are there also for you. And when you've got questions, don't hesitate to contact us, because you can always send an email. And for Saxion, if you want, for example, to have an internship over there, you can email us at pride@saxion.nl. And you can, for University of Twente, send an email to pride@utwente.nl. And for now, I really want to thank you all people for sharing those great stories. And this was my part of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniel. With this, we have now reached the end of today's webinar. This has been a great conversation, and I am delighted to have been part of it. I want to thank you all for joining us, both in person and online, and sharing your experiences with us. I'm really sure that your experiences might help a lot of other people outside of this room. And so I want to thank all of you who tuned in for watching this webinar, for your questions. Unfortunately, we could not address all of them, but as you already heard, we have associations like Exaltio or Think with Pride. You can always reach out to them, and they are willing to answer and help with whatever you need. Um, and a special thank you goes to the city of Enschede for the support of LGBTIQ plus in general, and also to the counselor Arjan Kampman, who heard about this webinar and made the hall available for this special event. So thank you very much to everyone, and until the next time. Bye.